Okay, so stuff happened. We were doing summons live on Twitch, and I was summoning for the Freedom Sword, right? And while I was summoning for the Freedom Sword, on my initial pulls, we ended up getting a Harp. Then we got donos and things like that happen. We ended up getting another Harp, and then another Harp, and another Harp. And now we have R5 Harp. So this video is gonna go over how the Skyward Harp is a bitchin' weapon, but there's another weapon that might be better. And for most players, like 99% of players, this weapon's a lot better, and it's the Stringless. So the Stringless, we're gonna be stress testing against the Skyward Harp at every refine, and I'll show you guys the damage difference between Stringless and Skyward Harp on Venti at every single refine, because this weapon is better than the Skyward Harp, but until a certain refine level, and that's actually kind of nuts. And I don't know what that is because this is the intro to the video, and I'm gonna have to edit it and figure it out afterward. So let's jump into it. All right, at the end of this video, my current stat ratio after we get to R5 now is now 68-205 Venti. Obviously 20% less C damage before that, and we're gonna have with the Stringless, obviously less C damage, but the same exact artifacts. It's gonna drop my C damage down to 165 and 46% crit chance. Again, with these lower ratios, Stringless is better. Now, for every test we're doing today, we're gonna use it with Bennett, because typically when you're using any Venti, you'll use Bennett to boost the damage and snapshot Venti's ultimate. So if you didn't know this, Bennett, if you pop your ultimate and then switch to Venti, the entirety of Venti's ultimate will be snapshotted beforehand, meaning so that the stats gained inside the Venti swirl will be the same whether I leave the zone from Venti or stay inside the zone for Venti. And that's the snapshot value. The Bennett we're using is also a max level Bennett with the maximum bozness I can actually boost everybody at with a Aquila Favonia. I will not be using a Noblesse set with this video because I think that using too much is bad. And then for the Mona, we're just using a jank set right now, just because if I use too much damage, then I'm gonna instantly kill them with Mona. I could have used like a little less, but we're using a Dodoko Tails on her right now just to lower the damage. We're gonna run two tests here with Refine 1 Harp versus Refine 5 Stringless. The first test here is going to go over the damage that I'm gonna be doing with Venti in the swirl on an Elemental Mastery only build with a little bit of crit chance and crit damage, as you can see from this build. And the second build here is gonna be a crit chance and crit damage build that you saw earlier in the video that we'll be going over for most of the video. And the EM value is not gonna change at all between refines. You can see small differences, so it doesn't really matter. Now on Venti, we're going at the crit chance build versus an Elemental Mastery build. I'll show you the number differences of what we saw between Refine 1 and Refine 5. So what I did was I actually took those values and I wanted to see what the damage ratio would be on each individual breakpoint. So I actually took the Skyward Harp at these breakpoints and tried to figure out if the Harp was better or not. And I took the Anemo damage hits from the Skyward Harp, and I also took out the Anemo damage from critical hits, swirl, additional damage, and the additional damage crits. So if you don't know the difference between the three, very simply, the Anemo damages and the green hits you're seeing. The swirl hits are the very large hits that are happening every so often that are coming in for Elemental Mastery, which are orange, and the additional damage hits are the small hits that happen 15 times in the mix that are just additional damage based on critical chance and critical damage. Swirl is only based on Elemental Mastery and level, so we leveled the Venti to 90 to get to maximize this. So to see this, what's really interesting here is we wanted to figure out what the best build was for Venti, and we actually found out that the best build for Venti is going to be between a crit chance and crit damage build for EM build. Obviously, as you can see here with the total numbers at the end, that the critical chance build is actually better than an Elemental Mastery build. Range what I took from the total low and total highs actually took this will actually change based on your own stat ratios and everything, and of course the overall averages I didn't take in here. I just took the total amount. If you didn't crit any hits at all, at here, and if you did crit all your hits, it's going to be here. If you didn't crit any hits here, if you didn't crit here, you can then extrapolate based on you hitting 50% of your hits or not in between this number. We're going to start refining Harp. All right, so now we're going to refine the Harp and see when the Harp gets better than Stringless. All right, we're an R2 Harp. fall damage. R5 Skyward Harp. Damn, bro. That's a passive. Damn, bro. All right, now here's the side-by-side with the refined 5 string Skyward Harp versus the R5 stringless. So after doing all the tests in the world, I calculated everything out and we wanted to figure out the totals. So what you have to know is that when you refine a Skyward Harp, the only thing that you get on refinements for Skyward Harp are increased critical damage by 5%. And then the proc can happen more often, which I'll factor that in a little bit. But when we go into here, the minimum damage for Anima won't change, but the maximum damage will. So the only thing that's going to change are the critical strikes, and the amount of crits that you get is just going to change in comparison. The swirl damage will remain exactly the same because your elemental mastery will remain identical, and the additional damage that you get will actually remain the same on the low end, but actually go up on the high end. So you can see here the damage differences between Refined 5 Heart and R5 Stringless. Here's the ending value for Stringless, for the top end for what a Stringless can provide, and the top end for what a Harp can provide over here before I add in the physical hits. Now, once you add in the physical procs for 11,000 damage or 12,000 damage, I think it was at the end here, it was like 12,764, I believe. In the physical domain, this could be much higher. So let's go out in the open world and see how much damage it does. All right, so I'm gonna use somewhat physical resistant enemies. Like they only have like 15% or so physical resistance here, and we'll see what the proc is. We'll do the Hill of Churls for the daily, I guess. And do it without Superconduct or any of the other factors. We'll just add in the Bennett buff like we did in the tests. The proc hits for about 4,900 on a crit, 4,900 on a crit, 1,967 on a non-crit. And because of the way the Skyward Harp proc works, it can happen every 2 seconds versus every 4 seconds whenever you hit an enemy, as long as Venti is on the field. So let's just say Venti was on the field in this situation and actually hit multiple times while he was out versus not being out. Let's go see how many times Venti's ultimate will actually hit a target. Let me go kill these guys real quick. So if we ulti these dudes here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So you get 4 hits from Venti's ultimate. I just did the math on that, but I just want to show it. Okay, and make sure that we type in the correct number before we do anything else. And you can clearly see that even with the Skyward Harp procs added into the mix, we're still gonna have a lower top end than we are with the Stringless. So if you ended up critting every single hit with the Stringless, you're going to get more damage in. But because you're gonna crit 20% more often with the Skyward Harp, you are probably getting a higher value in between these two numbers. For an average DPS gonna be higher with the Skyward Harp at Refined 5. But the crazy thing is, it's only gonna be like this much better, and that's if we're comparing it to the Refined 1 Harp versus the Refined 5 Harp without the proc. Okay, so now we have the total numbers up for the Skyward Harp, the the Stringless, and everything else. This whole thing is a mess. Finalized numbers of everything versus the damage numbers for Stringless, and I'm kind of blown away that the damage numbers are so weighted against Skyward Harp. So with the crit chance being higher, you're average at a higher crit chance value for damage. But if you ended up getting a little bit more crit chance from other factors, like let's just say Rosaria's ultimate, or potentially using Hu Tao in the mix as well to give extra critical chance, those numbers might be weighted a little bit more toward the Stringless. So using other buff factors is going to make Stringless better in the long term than a Skyward Harp option. So what that means to me is that Skyward Harp is a really good option for DPS carries that are going to be aiming on normal and charge attacks, but not so much on elemental skill, elemental burst characters that are going to deal with reactions for Anemo. So that's kind of interesting that the Skyward Harp is not going to be a good weapon for Venti. Probably not a great, that's going to be good for physical official, but stringless is better. Kind of crazy, right? Now, if your stat ratios don't work out the right way, of course, it's going to be very different. And I think stringless is going to be worse than Skyward Harp, but it's crazy to me that you don't get a big bump from an R5 5-star weapon. But alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. My name's Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, of course, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day.